Afternoon, everyone. My name is Joy Sestrunk of Premier Group, a CPA firm in the Lanham area, and we are still in the midst of COVID-19, and we hope that you are surviving and enjoying these sunny days that we are getting now. So we're excited that the weather is breaking, and I think that's changing our perspective on all of the different things that have happened so far with COVID and all the different stages that we've had to go through. So I am here with our resident HR expert, Henrietta Smith of Vital Business Solutions. She is here to help us through what reopening looks like. What does it feel like? How should we be treating either our employees, or how should employees even be looking at going back into the office? So welcome, Henrietta. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Joy, for inviting me. I'm excited to share whatever information will be helpful for everyone to increase their knowledge about what they need to do to reopen in the next few weeks.
Well, that's perfect, because that's what's going on. I think what's happening now is we've moved from working remotely, everyone from being in a state of chaos. People have gotten comfortable at home, and now each state is starting to open back up. I know here in Maryland, overall as a state, I think we're in phase 2, but then some places like PG County are still in phase 1. And so what does that mean for people going back to work? Are employers going to have to check temperatures, get the thermometer like we used to and wave them around and check each person as they walk into the office? What does it mean from the HR perspective? What are we responsible for?
There are a gamut of things that need to be done. OSHA kind of has the regulations of what needs to happen in order for employees to safely go back into the office. So you can easily, if you go to OSHA COVID-19, you can definitely get a bunch of checklists and information and flyers that you can post around the office of what you need to do. But just in short, to generalize, you first it depends on your type of business. Let's say if you are a service-oriented business where everyone is just going back into a work office, you want to make sure that, yes, you are checking temperatures. Some people check your oxygen level on a hand oxidizer. You can get those for about, I think, $70. And if your oxygen levels are at a certain level, then you're sent back home and to go see a medical professional. As you know, there are more sites opening for you to take the test. Some employers, because we have more sites now open for people to take tests, may require people to take a test before they return to work.
Oh, okay.
So that is a great option to have, since now it's free and it's more readily available. Also, if you take the temperature, some things to think about is, if you're going to do that, who is going to be responsible for taking the temperature? How are they going to track it? Are they doing it every day? And just, you have to have a process in order to make it consistent and fair across the board. As you know, some people are not symptomatic, so you could check a temperature, but that doesn't mean someone doesn't have the virus coming into your workforce. So that's why pre-testing is, to me, a better and safer option than just checking the oxygen level or your temperature. Outside of that, make sure you have your PPE materials, such as a face mask. Usually the medical grade is fine. Some people are wearing the cotton. And then some people wear face shields. It may get a little hot, but if the AC is blasting, that might work out okay. Outside of that, some people are wearing gloves. Make sure you have hand sanitizer everywhere, particularly by the door. Some people are buying these tools where it opens and closes doors without you touching it. Make sure you have trash cans everywhere that there is a door, have a trash can there. But if people are wearing gloves, they may want to throw the gloves away as soon as they finish opening and closing the doors, or wiping down the doors, as they come in and come out. For seating, some offices are usually small, so you may want to consider putting up plexiglass to separate employees within the office space. Most people are buying, I'm not sure how they're setting it up, but they're buying it, and then there's like these metal foot holders that you slide the plexiglass into, and so it just kind of sits on the desk and separates people as well. Make sure everyone's 6 foot. You need to put tape in 6 foot distance areas so people will know, at least in the office, of when they're too close or not, far, at a
far
good
enough
distance.
away.
Right. Also in the heavy traffic areas like the break room,
Mm-hmm.
or the bathrooms, you want to create a protocol where, again, you have the tape where people have to wait. If someone else is in a restroom, it should be one at a time. In the break room, one at a time, and it's a patience game. You have to wait it out. You may want to
Wow.
create schedules for people to use the break room, or go on break so that it's not heavy traffic exactly at noon.
So
Outside
there's a
of
lot.
that,
That's a lot to think about, though. And I
it's a
guess
lot to think about because you
there is a
want to
lot to think
keep
about.
people safe. I mean,
Right.
and some people may say this is a little neurotic, but even if someone, let's say, is on public transportation and they get off the bus and then come to work, well, do they have the virus on their clothes? You
Oh.
know, who knows?
Okay.
So keeping that distance is very important. You can also buy this UV waiver, this little wave machine about this big, and
Mm-hmm.
you can wave it across materials, and it'll kill the virus that way. So they may
Oh.
want to consider buying one of those. It's less than $100. And
Okay.
but when people who do take public transportation, maybe they wave when they come in. Some people say set up a mat where maybe there is some kind of sanitizer or something where you can wipe your shoes off when you come in, because it's known that the virus clings onto plastic, can cling onto your shoes for more than 7 days.
Wow.
So these are all things to consider when coming back into the office, of keeping your place clean or clear of the virus as much as you can. But I think if
Any
everybody practices good sanitation, wiping down their area when they first get there and when they leave, following the protocol within the office, I think everybody would stay safe.
Well, that's a good point. One, I love the fact that you have given us you have, even as a business owner, someone has been coming into the office every day during the pandemic. We've been deemed essential. We had a few people that were coming in. There are things that you've given me on this list that I hadn't considered, like the UV ray gun and things like that. One of the things I actually was considering doing was ordering masks for the whole team. We have disposable masks, but I've seen a lot of these people that are making masks. Do you have any
hmm
suggestions for that? Are they safe? What should we be
Well,
considering when you see a lot of, because I mean, it looks nice and you want the branding
hmm
of it, but is it actually
really
safe, and
protect
are you
you.
protecting your team?
Well, you have different takes on it, scenarios on it. I've heard no mask works to only certain masks works.
Okay.
I go by the logic. If you go to a hospital, what do doctors have on?
Right.
Mask, right?
Yes.
They're all wearing it for a reason. They have face shields on. They're all wearing it for a reason. So if you want to protect yourself, definitely, if you can't get the surgical mask, the blue one on the outside and is white on the inside, it also comes in the color black. Those are the easiest to buy. You can usually buy them in like a 50-pack or 100-pack. Also, people are making masks. Now, what some people do is, this is kind of going extreme, but I've seen doctors do it when they don't have the N95 masks, is they will wear two masks. So they
Oh.
may have two surgical masks, one overlapping the other, just for that extra barrier of protection. Some people will wear a surgical mask and then their designer mask, I call them, just to have a little style or extra, whatever. They say you would do a breathing test. Let's say you have a lighter and you have your
Hmm.
mask on. They said if you can blow out the lighter or a match while your mask is on, there's not enough fibers to
It's not the
protect
right
you from
mask.
anything coming and going in.
I
So you
like
can
it.
do a test to determine that. There are videos on OSHA and other sites that will show you exactly the safest way to wear your mask, to put your mask on, and to take your mask off from a
Okay.
sanitation perspective. So those videos are available online for free. But yeah, I would say that the safest mask that I've heard about is the N95. I've bought some myself. It has what they call a ventilator on it in the
Hmm.
middle, so you can breathe, you can smell, and it
Right.
allows you to breathe better than these other masks. And it's supposed to have a barrier on it to help protect anything from coming in. And it does have a cushion as well, which is very different from all the other masks that I've worn. So those are a little bit more expensive. They cost about $5 each. You can get it a little bit more now. About 2 months ago, it was very hard to get them, but now they're more readily available to buy. So those, and they only come in the color white. So it's the N95 for super protection, or you can wear a double surgical, or you could just wear a cotton or surgical mask. Just make sure you can't blow out a candle or,
Right.
a match with it. Otherwise, the fibers are too loose and there's no protection. Or you could wear a face shield and your cloth mask as well.
Okay. So we do all of this. We get our offices all cleaned. We're making sure that the desks are distanced. We're making sure that we have a schedule of, who can be in the break room, and we have hand sanitizer, trash cans. We've bought masks. We've done everything possible. And then we call people back into the office and say, hey, we're ready. What happens when they say, I don't want to come back? I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe in the office. I'm still concerned. What is our recourse? Are we forcing them to come back? Are we being considerate of their feelings? What are we supposed to do as business owners?
Well, first of all, you have a business. Your business has to operate and function, and you hire people to work in your business to get things done. So I think the first thing any business owner needs to consider, because everyone is saying things are changing, we have to consider a new way of working. So the first thing a business owner needs to think about is, has my team been productive since March, since they are working virtually at home? Are they productive? Are we getting things done? Are we communicating effectively? Have there been any barriers that I can't wait to resolve, because when we open up, those barriers will no longer be there? If there are no barriers that you experience, or very little, and you're functioning well, then I would say consider allowing people to still work from home who need to, and those who want to come back to work and work in the office, have them work in the office as well. I would say be considerate of people's feelings, but the first thing you do is assess your productivity and your environment and ask yourself, can I change? Can we adapt and adjust the new way of working, at least for the next year? Then you look at your team and ask yourself, well, what are the conditions and situations each team member is having? So you have to listen, communicate.
Right.
So listen to them first, hear everything they have to say, and ask yourself, is this legitimate? For example, if there are no daycare centers open yet because we're in phase 1 or phase 2, and this person has 2 young children at home, what are they supposed to do? Bring the children to work? How are they supposed to function? If this person has been working well at home and they have a system going on, you may want to consider allowing them to continue that until we get to phase 3 or phase 4, where they can put the kids in a daycare center or somewhere and then can work freely with your organization. Let's say someone is a high risk. They have a chronic disease or something, and they're really concerned about their health. For that person, again, you assess to say, well, is this person working well at home? If they are, maybe I'll keep them there. If not, and it's essential that they come back, then you have to create an outline for them to see how you're protecting them. It has to be a dialogue, and make it very clear, these are your concerns and this is how I'm addressing it. You have to consider the American Disabilities Act, where you have to accommodate people who have health conditions. It's still in effect, these labor laws, so you have to say, well, if this person has a condition, maybe get a notice or a slip from the doctor to say what those accommodations should be. So that way it's a legitimate concern from a professional, and then from there you kind of negotiate with the person to see how it can work. Now, of course, if this person doesn't want to come back, there's nothing really preventing them from coming back beyond fear, and you need them there because they, let's say, were only 50% or 60% effective, and you need them to be now 100% effective, then now it turns into a disciplinary process. When you've already had the conversations, when you did the best you can do, some people you're going to say, hey, if you have a health concern, maybe take leave without pay for a few weeks. However, whatever that amount of time is that you can function without that person, because we don't hire anybody we don't need. So if you can function without that person for a week or two to come back in the office, then allow them to go leave without pay, or if they have any leave, allow them to use it. And then from there, they need to come back. And if they don't want to come back, now it's a disciplinary. I need you to come back. If you don't, it's a write-up. And nobody wants to go down that road, but you have to run your business. And they have to keep in mind, if somebody's out on unemployment, you open back up and they refuse to come back, you have to report that now you're back open to the unemployment office. That person no longer gets unemployment.
Wow.
Because they just refuse to work.
And they can actually be charged with fraud. We've been talking a lot about that, even with the PPP funds. Once you decide to bring someone back, if they say no, I'm making more money on unemployment, when all of this is said and done and the smoke clears, they're going to be coming back to you to get those funds. And so it's important that people just not think, okay, I don't have to go back, or I'm making more money here. But what happens in this case? Because I know at one point people who had gotten COVID and were sick had a certain amount of leave. Was it 12 weeks that they could use to take care of either themselves or a sick loved one? What happens if they're at the end of that 12 weeks, but their family member hasn't gotten better, or they're still suffering with some things? So are we now talking about leave without pay, or is that a different situation? Do we have to treat them differently if they're still having COVID related issues, even though it seems things are changing?
No, I think the laws are the laws, and there's really no negotiation between them. I think you also have to consider, especially for small employers who may have lost some revenue, you can't afford to pay more, for leave outside of what already exists or what you've already been, let's say, funded for under PPP or EDIL or whatever, funding source that you were able to get. And also remember that smaller employers were able to waive the FFCRA from paying at all if it caused a hardship. So somebody who, is still sick, the FFCRA allow for 2 weeks of paid leave up to $511 per day. After that, you go on FMLA. It was the children who were in daycare or school who, if you had to work from home, you got up to $200 a day for 12 weeks. The first 2 weeks were not covered, and then it's 10 weeks thereafter. Now, I didn't do my math, but I'm assuming that's going to end sometime this summer.
It will.
Or this month, maybe
this
even
month.
this month.
Probably the end of this
month.
So
once it ends this month and the employer is back open, there's no more money to pay. So you either go back to work or use a leave that doesn't cover you, because FMLA is 12 weeks, but it's not paid.
That's true.
So, if you're still sick, you can definitely go on FMLA, but it's unpaid. So,
so we have the human cost that we have to figure out. We have the actual cost from the PPE that we now have to buy. Is there anything else from an HR perspective that people need to be thinking about as we move into reopening? So we have the people who don't want to come back. I'm sure a lot of people are actually anxious to go back to work. What are some other things we need to be thinking about as we're reopening?
As you reopen, another thing to consider is what if there's a surge or, another surge of cases. Let's say one employee in your office, after you reopen, gets the virus. Now you have to test everyone. Does everyone now go home and quarantine for 2 weeks? You have to consider, what do you do if this happens again? So you have to have a process in place to ensure that if someone else gets sick, of course, everyone has to get tested immediately, and, now tests are available, so they get tested. If, no one has it except that one person, you follow your safety protocol. If you can allow it for everybody just to go back home for a week or two, or everyone who was exposed to that person to go back home for 2 weeks and work from home, that's the safest thing to do. Of course, it will disrupt your business a little bit, but again, you have to factor in, for those who are, let's say, in the service industry, were we functioning well at working virtually? And if you were, then you can go back to doing that again. Some people may opt to not even open for a while, just to see, if we can get past 1 or 2 months before there's another surge in cases. So that way they don't have to open, close, open, close, open, close.
Right.
I think also you need to chart out the different leave options you have for people, because keep in mind, FFCRA expires in December. So someone might get sick or whatever, in July. Well, they have 2 weeks of FFCRA up to $511, and then from there they can go on FMLA. So it's different options for people just depending on the situation, but you need to be aware of every form of leave that's available to your employees before you talk about discipline or letting them go or
Right.
replacing them or whatever. You have to ask yourself, did I allow all the options that are available to this person for them to do before I said I'm sorry?
Right. No,
So,
that's actually very helpful. And I think in the case of employees, it's always a sensitive area anyway. And so I think I've always heard, and I know personally, even for our own business, to get a good employee and to train them and to get them where you want, it takes 6 to 9 months. So you don't just want
exactly.
to toss
Very
that out the
expensive.
door over, a misunderstanding or because you want them to come to
Exactly.
work and they don't come to work. And in this environment, actually, we have clients and even some of our colleagues who've decided to just keep their offices closed for the summer because they don't want to do the back and forth thing. They
Exactly.
understand that productivity is still they're maintaining productivity where they are now. And so it makes sense for them to keep the office. So each person has to decide based on their business model what's important to them. And most importantly, what I'm hearing you say and what we've even been preaching to people about is planning is going to be one of the most important
Yes.
things. You
Very
can't just
critical.
go off half-cocked. You really need to think about the cost and the people and what's going to be best for you and your team, and balance the cost of doing business with the people cost and making sure that you're being considerate of people. Because
Exactly.
I actually, you gave me another question while you were talking. If I have an employee who goes out on the FFCRA for one child, comes back, and then someone else gets sick, are they able to get it multiple times because they have multiple people in their households?
I have not heard that. I believe it's just a one-time thing.
Okay. Okay.
Because even if it's, it could be a sick lump. Think about it this way: it's expanded FMLA,
Okay.
and FMLA is only for 12 weeks, regardless of whether you decided to adopt a child, you already had a child that's sick, and then you had a loved one that was sick, and then you got sick. You still have just 12 weeks.
Got you. So no, that's helpful. I would say we've gotten some questions. So the FFCRA, someone asked, FFCRA is not AFLAC. This is a benefit from the employer. Is that
This is from
correct?
the employer. The employer, if they have 25 or less employees, they can waive out of this because pretty much what the government is asking them to do is pay either, depending on the situation, $511 per day or $200 per day up to that 2-week period or that 12-week period, well, 10-week period really, and that could be quite costly. So
Very, very.
if because they're not getting reimbursed for it, this is their bottom line. This is hitting their profit,
Their profit.
profits. Yeah. So that's where the PPP comes in and the EIDL because it allowed them to have some cash flow to be able to pay for these things.
Right.
But let's say the PPP money ends this week, next week, or this month. What do you do then?
What do you do then?
If your sales decline and now your PP money is gone, can I reopen? Do I have to start laying people off? I mean, there's so many factors that a business owner has to consider when we talk about opening and utilization of different types of leave because you have to consider where is this money going to come from? That was the biggest question when FFCR was first introduced to business owners is, whoa, who's paying for this?
Who's paying for this? It's a great benefit, but who's going to pay for it? Because we can't afford to pay for it as small business
owners. And then a couple
owners.
of weeks later, they came up with the CARES Act, but the CARES Act didn't come simultaneously with FFCRA.
Right.
So that question was in the air.
So no, well that is good. Thank you so much. We've gotten some other questions. Thank you, Carly Lester. She is selling PPE, FDA approved. She has tagged herself in the link below. If you need PPE, I mean, we personally have ordered from Amazon and eBay. We found that things are starting to loosen up because before you couldn't even find hand sanitizer things. But now we are starting to see that it's flowing a little bit better.
It is opening up. I would say really check the prices because people have double and triple the value of this PPE equipment, which to me is criminal.
It is criminal.
I mean, hand sanitizer is going for $10 to $12 when it used to be $3.
We do have a comment. There is a tax write-off for FFCRA, but you
Yes.
cannot take the tax write-off if you got PPP. So it cannot be combined with PPP. And so I think that's one of the things that people didn't realize. It is a one or the other type situation. And so and all of this stuff is subject to change, even with PPP, because originally we only had 8 weeks. Now we have 24 weeks. So you have people going back, trying to recalculate and figure out which one is going to be best for them. So I think long term, you're going to see a lot of this stuff is going to get clearer as we go on. I know the Treasury and Department, the SBA has been issuing new regulations almost weekly. Sometimes it feels like daily. So things are continuing to change. And even with this reopening, we're hearing rumors and things being said, oh, if it's hot enough, the virus doesn't carry. We still don't know enough.
We don't know.
We don't know. And so it's better to be safe than sorry. So Henrietta, thank you so much for your time. How can someone get in contact with you if they have HR related questions about COVID?
They can reach us at hsmith@vbs-hr.com. Again, that's hsmith@v as in Victor, b as in boy, s as in Sam, -hr.com. And the website is www.vbs-hr.com. It was a pleasure, Joy.
It was a pleasure to have and I look forward to having future conversations because I'm sure this is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning. There's so many factors to consider, and everything has to be measured out. I mean, even when you think about employers getting money from the government, as you and I were talking about the other day, you have to be cognizant of what are the regulations and requirements and restrictions with the money. You know, like, for example, we were talking about the EIDG, and how if you had the PPP, that's deducted from that. So now you end up paying, for whatever that deduction is, now you're paying for it at a 1% interest rate, where you thought it was going to be free before.
You thought it was free.
Many things, and some the money can be used for this, but maybe not for that. So you have to be really conscious of everything and chart it out.
You do. And so if you need help with PPP forgiveness, PPP questions, or even just budgeting or figuring out what's next and how do my numbers play into this, you can reach out to us here at Premier Group at accounting@pgservicesinc.com, or you can go to our website, www.pgservicesinc.com. And as always, if you have questions, we are all here to help, and stay safe. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.